This interview is brought to you by the Pro Fight Shop in Hollywood. Radio Raheem with legend, Hall of Famer, the man who everyone that could possibly be watching this video knows if you know anything about boxing, Larry Merchant. You know, it's a pleasure to see you again, Larry. You know, you haven't been gone for long, but we've missed you.
Thank you. I'm in my element here.
Well, you know, no matter what age a person retires that's been doing something as long as you have and with the passion that you do it, they always miss it. What elements of the sport, at least sitting ringside and calling the fights, do you miss most?
Well, first of all, we don't use the R word.
Okay, that's news.
Because right from the get-go I said, you'll still find me here, there, or anywhere. It turns out China is my next assignment. You know, I haven't been away long enough to miss a lot of stuff. A lot of good fights coming up, and I'll be covering some of them for various venues and television. But I had a lot of good years, so I'm still connected emotionally, philosophically, in every way to the game.
What will you be doing in China?
Top Rank hired me to go to China to do a fight show for April 6th, which incidentally is going to be on HBO, much to my surprise. And the big deal is that it's the professional debut of Xu Ming, who is a two-time gold medalist. And Macau is, as has been described, Las Vegas on steroids, so there'll be a few folks there.
Well, since retirement's not the word, and you seem, like you say, to be going to China almost to do the same thing that you've been doing, well, why is that? Why aren't you just continuing your career at ringside and giving us your perspective post and pre-fight?
Well, that's because I agreed 2 years ago to start to phase out with HBO, and there was 2 years left, and then a couple of years after that in which I could still do some stuff for them, but that I'm free to go and seek my fortune elsewhere.
So it sounds more like a business decision. I'd like to ask you a bit about the business in boxing, in fact. You know, this week we've gotten some news that has shaken up the boxing world and is troubling to many fans. The news that HBO and Golden Boy will no longer be working together per HBO's insistence. First of all, can you tell me how you feel that that came about? It's still kind of mysterious why the division's so deep, and how you think that's going to affect the sport.
Well, you know, the background of this is that boxing is every man for himself. Everybody acts in their self-interest, and that includes the fighters, the promoters, etc. And this is there's been a kind of de facto split going on with most Golden Boy fights going to Showtime. Why an announcement was made to make it a divorce, I have no idea.
Well, you know, I have to ask, with you being a free agent, you know, would you consider working at Showtime? Are you that free an agent?
No, I'm not that free of an agent. There were certain conditions on my leaving HBO, and I will be doing most of my work as a commentator on international events and international feeds, at least for a while. And I'm perfectly happy with that. It's just another act where I didn't know if there'd be another act.
In the second half of the question, what you think that would mean for the sport of boxing? I mean, we're already in a situation where there's a Cold War between Top Rank and Golden Boy, And now it looks like instead of splitting in half the possibilities of getting certain matchups that we want to see when we want to see them, it's going to be split in quarters.
Well, you know, we've had situations like this before. You know, back in the day, Showtime had Tyson and King, and HBO had Lennox Lewis and other fighters, and they couldn't make the fight, and finally they agreed that both networks would be involved in that fight because it was so big and made so much sense. So I just assume if there's an event that's big enough, that something will fall that way, but it may, at least in the short run, it may lead to a spurt of big fights as each network and each promoter tries to outdo each other. I mean, the Bradley fight turned out that we want to see two fighters instead of one after that fight. What is the mix between them and Rios and Alvarado? There's all kinds of possibilities. And also, Top Rank has Marquez and Pacquiao. How does all that? Well, that's 6 pretty good fighters. And yet, Golden Boy has a lot of guys in the welterweight and junior welterweight divisions that they can match among themselves. So there's no loss in the immediate future, and we'll see how it turns out in the championship rounds down the road.
Well, you say that we've had situations like this before, but have you ever remembered a time when there was a promoter at the level of a Golden Boy where the network refused blanketly to work with the promoter?
It's unusual, but there was kind of de facto separation of that kind going on. I seem to recollect when King took Tyson to Showtime, HBO wasn't too happy about it, and this kind of public split, I don't know if that's happened before. I don't know what's going to happen, for example, with Adrian Broner now. HBO had been building him as one of the stars of the future. Does he wind up with Showtime now because he's a Golden Boy fighter? I don't, you know, I've always said the guys who do those kinds of things and make the fights and make them happen, and the television executives and producers, they allow me to play in my sandbox, you know?
Right.
And so my sandbox, that's above my pay grade. I don't know all the machinations that go on in the front office.
Last question on this point, because you did bring up Tyson going to Showtime, Don King taking him there. That actually occurred to me when I heard this news. Floyd Mayweather obviously going to Showtime for that 6-fight deal. If you don't have the inside scoop, instinctually, how much do you think that played into what we're dealing with now?
Well, you know, you can't deny that it's part of the big picture. You can't deny that for Showtime, for the whole network, not just their sports, that was a big get, a big statement. You know, they're competing with HBO overall, not just in boxing. And so, yeah, they're, you know, and sometimes maybe you got to punch the other guy in the nose to get his attention. And maybe that's what HBO did.
Great assessment. That's pretty much what I'm thinking may have happened here. Larry, turning now to your assessments of the sport overall, I mean, you're such a gold mine because you've been here so long and seen so much, and there's always amongst boxing fans the debate about eras. And now we seem to be in another transitional phase. Do you think that the era, I guess you could call it the Pacquiao-Mayweather era that we're leaving, could stand muster against the golden age of boxing? Or do you think that what's coming next may be, you know, as good or better?
You know, it's hard to compare eras, even going back just, for example, to the 90s and the early 2000s, when we had so many American heavyweights. So if you didn't have a good fight, well, 2 weeks from now you'll have a good heavyweight fight, or you'll have Roy Jones, or you'll have Oscar De La Hoya. Or look at all those terrific featherweights coming up. You know, Morales, Barrera, Pacquiao, Marquez. So the stars aligned at that time in a very positive way. This is a different time. There are no American heavyweights that we know of who aren't playing linebacker. And so it's harder to get the public's attention, because for most casual fans or even non-fans, it was who's the heavyweight champion. He was automatically a star. So it's a different time, and it remains. There's a lot of good young American fighters, and will one or two or three of them emerge as real stars and attractions who transcend the sport? We can only wait and see.
Yeah, the era like we just passed, and now with that assessment, you know, I wonder with the influx of the UFC and the lack of a heavyweight champion that's American, is it possible for boxing to come back, especially now with all these divisions, promotion-wise, network-wise? If that's not going to happen, and we don't see an American heavyweight on the cusp, what can bring boxing back to the forefront of the American awareness?
Well, there's an interesting contradiction going on. One, there's more live boxing shows on cable television today than there ever have been, like an average of 3 or 4 a week. And two, Mayweather and Pacquiao may not be heavyweights, but in terms of their popularity, in terms of the dollars they generate, they're heavyweights. There are heavyweights. So, you know, things change, and sometimes we get surprised. And, you know, what if a Tiger Woods of heavyweights emerges from somewhere?
And lastly, Larry, you're obviously not done. As you said, retirement is not the word. You're still working. So for someone that has had this amount of time in the sport, you must be still looking for something, or feel like you can contribute something. First of all, what is it that the sport still gives to you that doesn't keep you at home, get you out of bed, get you out of the house, and makes you still come back to these stinky gyms? And what is it that you feel like you still have to contribute to the sport?
What I can contribute is just doing what I do and being who I am. And I'm a professional observer, a commentator, and to me, the best place in the world to observe human behavior is ringside. And how do guys deal with success and failure? How do they deal with adversity? In and out of the ring? That's a world. And I'm still curious about it, and I still find things to laugh about it, and it's watching the human arc as guys come and reach their peaks and go, and how do they handle all that stuff. To me, it's life condensed into a ring.
You know, Larry, you are the definition of a Hall of Famer, and your storied career is inspiration to anybody in this business, wants to be in this business, anyone like myself that's doing what we're doing. So thank you for that. I'm glad that you won't be gone. I'll be happy to see you again soon. Radio Raheem, none other than Larry Merchant.
Thank you.